Hi, I'm Suchandra, and today I'm going to talk about the biopharmaceutical industry. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and the most discussed news item is the availability of a vaccine or a potential treatment for the COVID-19 virus. And the industry that is at the forefront of this battle against the coronavirus is the biopharma industry. Now, a biopharma company brings therapeutics from lab to your local pharmacy shelf. Like I mentioned, the biopharma industry is at the forefront of COVID-19 vaccine development. Biopharma companies utilize biological processes to develop drugs. These companies develop drugs and therapies to treat difficult diseases like cancer and autoimmune diseases. Let me walk you through the drug development life cycle and some of the career options in this industry. The drug development life cycle begins with research and early development. This is the drug discovery phase. It is at this phase that scientists hypothesize that a certain molecule can be used to treat a target disease. A lot of experiments are performed at this step, and if the results are promising, some drug prototypes are developed. The second step in the drug development life cycle is the preclinical research step. At this step, drugs are tested on animals. If the results in this step are promising, the drug development cycle moves on to the next step, which is the clinical trial step. It is at this step that the drugs are tested on human subjects. This is a crucial step in the drug development process and spans several phases. Before we move on, let's discuss some of the career options available in these three phases of drug development. We see biochemists, biophysicists, statisticians, physicians, data scientists, medical writers involved in these three phases of drug development life cycle. This is not an exhaustive list. There are a host of other professionals and enablers who work to bring a drug to market. These are some of the important professionals who are involved in these three steps. The next step in the drug development process is the regulatory review. It is at this step that regulatory bodies like the US Food and Drug Administration will review the results of the clinical trial step and provide a decision whether a drug is ready for licensing and mass production. Not surprisingly, a lot of legal professionals are involved in this step. The last step in the drug development process is the post-market monitoring, also known as the commercialization step. It is at this step that a drug can be marketed, manufactured, and distributed. So marketing professionals are heavily involved in this step. Information systems and finance professionals are involved in all the phases of the drug development lifecycle. Like I mentioned, this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the important professionals involved in the drug development lifecycle. Moving on, let's discuss what does it take to bring a drug to market. This picture here depicts what we discussed in the prior slide. That is, a host of different professionals are involved in the drug discovery and development process. The new drug development cycle picture depicts a lot of different numbers, namely number of potential drugs that are involved in the drug discovery phase. If you see, there are 5,000 to 10,000 potential drugs in the drug discovery phase. And by the time of the drug development life cycle, you reach the preclinical stage, it whittles down to 250 to 500 potential drugs. The clinical trial phase, which involves testing of drugs on human subjects, involves many patients. It's not a fixed number, but it can be somewhere between 1,200 to 6,000 patients. At the end of it, one drug, please note the number, one. From 10,000 potential drug candidates, it's one drug that is approved for commercialization by the regulatory body. At this point, I'm sure you would appreciate the long and arduous journey that a drug makes from the lab to the market. And here are some more numbers. The R&D costs. It's staggering. It costs about $2.7 billion to bring one cancer or immunological medication to market. So this is a heavily capital intensive industry. It's a high stakes game right here. So what are some of the key business drivers in this industry? Of course, drug pricing is of utmost importance. And you might have realized that this is a heavily regulated industry. And people working in this industry are working on cutting edge tools and technology, and they are using emerging innovations in their respective fields of work. Of course, finance function is a very important function in any industry, and especially in this high stakes industry. There is a lot of responsibility on the head of finance, which is the chief financial officer or the CFO of the company. So what would the CFO of a company need to succeed? Of course, he or she would need data. And why would they need data? Because a CFO needs to make sound business decisions. And for that, a CFO needs data. And who provides that data? The finance professionals provide the data. And how would the finance professionals get the data? They would utilize tools and processes designed for their specific business needs. Now, why am I talking about this here? Of course, finance is a very important function in this industry, but there is another reason for this, for the reason why I'm talking here. And that's because this makes a perfect segue to the work I do in the biopharma industry. But before I talk about that, let me walk you through my journey so far. Back in school, I loved a lot of subjects. I liked math, chemistry, literature, history, economics. I had a general love for learning. And my least favorite subject was biology. So I knew I was not becoming a doctor. But other than that, I was thoroughly confused. With so many favorites, I did not know what to do. So I did the most obvious thing, which is to appear for the JEE exam and study electrical engineering at National Institute of Technology, Durgapur. After that, I traveled to the US, did a master's in electrical engineering, and followed it up with a master's in computer science. After that, I worked for a few years for corporate finance clients as a business technology professional. It was at this time that I realized that I would love to get a CA or a CPA credential. So I brought out my books, studied, gained the experience to get the credential. After that, I joined the biopharma industry. It is interesting to note that back in school, I did not like biology, and here I am working in a biopharma industry. So that tells me nothing is set in stone. If you look at my journey, it has not been linear. There has been several twists and turns along the way. And in a perfect world, this journey would have been much simpler. But unfortunately, we do not live in a perfect world. But one thing I must say, this journey has been totally worth it. Of course, this is my professional journey, but this has also been my personal journey, a journey of self discovery. I realized certain things about myself. I understood my strengths and weaknesses. And if you look at my journey, you'll see that one theme has been consistent. I loved a lot of subjects back in school. I had a general love for learning, and that theme has played out throughout my life. I learned a lot of subjects and applied them in my work life. What I'm trying to tell you here is that it is your own unique personal attributes that will guide you along your professional journey. So, let us go back to the biopharma industry. So, what can you expect working in this industry? You will realize that your work impact lives of patients. You will be abreast of cutting edge therapies. You will be working in a very dynamic environment. You will be learning about concepts far removed from what you were trained to do. For example, recently, my company developed a therapy called CAR T therapy to treat certain blood cancers. This is a immunotherapy that is used to um, that utilizes a patient's own immune cells to drive out cancer cells. Isn't that cool? And look who is talking about that. A person who has not been trained in any of the biological processes. I have degrees in electrical engineering, computer science, and corporate finance. But here I am talking about cutting edge immunotherapies. If you are like me and have a love for learning new things, this is the industry for you. There are plenty of opportunities to upskill. One interesting thing I have noticed is that I have been fielding questions about drug pricing. People come to me and ask me, why are some of these cancer or autoimmune disease drugs so expensive? These are life saving drugs, but these are extremely expensive. And I'm there to provide some insider perspective to drug pricing. So that is an interesting role, I would say. Thank you for listening to this discussion today. And if you have more questions, you can reach out to me at my email address listed here. Thank you. Bye bye.